Yep, there we go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our session, the first one of 2026. Seems really strange saying 2026. I haven't actually sort of said it in a work capacity yet. I wrote the date for the first time yesterday and I was like, oh, that's weird. So we're really, really lucky today that we've got two of our wonderful people that a lot of you who perhaps are here or are watching in their own time will know from the NIC in Liverpool. So we've got Claire and Nadia here to do a session with us about being plant-based and AKU. So we're hoping that this is going to be a really good resource. And also there's room for some questions and things like that during the session. Claire, would you prefer them to ask as we go along or at the end or in the chat box? What works best for you?
Don't really mind. I mean, there's not
Okay.
loads of us, so if people want to ask as they go, we have got plenty of time for questions at the end. And I was going to just put a few slides up as well of the Libro app as well.
Yes, brilliant.
But if people have a question that they want to ask as we're going through and don't want to wait till then, that's absolutely fine. Just either put your hand up or start speaking.
Fantastic. Okay, so I will hand over to you guys then.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Right, so I am going to share my screen. Let's hope the technology all works. Perfect. That all looks okay. Can everybody see that all right?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. So I think, Gary, have you met Nadia already?
No, I haven't.
Oh, and Alicia, I think is the other person, and I don't know. This is I'm Claire Soulsby, for those who don't know me, and this is Nadia Giannakopoulou. Did I get that right? And we're just going to do a quick run through of plant-based diets and then talk through a few recipes. So excellent. The slide's not moving forward. We'll just have to do it this way. No, that's not working either. Okay, I'm just going to stop sharing and try sharing again and see if I can work out what's going wrong. See, we did this, but we didn't try advancing the slide, did we? Let's get rid of that. Right, my laptop seems to have helpfully stopped working. There we go.
These things are sent to test us, ladies. That it always
Absolutely.
happens. I think I'm a technology curse, so it could be me. If needs be, you can always send it to me and I'll share the screen for you if it doesn't work.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be fine. I just need to remember not to swear. Now then, share. Here we go. That is the one there. Fantastic. Okay, so just a quick outline. So I'm just going to talk about the benefits of plant-based diets with AKU. I'm going to talk a bit about plant-based meat alternatives. And then Nadia is going to talk about cooking with beans and pulses. And then if we've got time and people are interested, we can talk about the Libro app. So just a quick overview of plant-based diets. Plant-based and vegan, I think, are used interchangeably. I think vegan's become a slightly less popular or trendy word, so it's kind of been replaced with plant-based. But generally, it's a diet that doesn't include any products of animal origin. So based on legumes such as beans, lentils, chickpeas, soybeans, soy products such as tofu and tempeh, nuts and seeds. And those are all really the protein sources. Those are the things that kind of replace your meat and your eggs and dairy. Grains, so bread, pasta, rice, quinoa, and potatoes, also obviously plant-based and included. And those are things that most people who don't have AKU tend to think of as being carbohydrates and not protein containing foods. But we know, because all of you with AKU are protein experts, know that these also have protein, although a smaller amount, so we count those too. And then you've got fruit and vegetables, herbs and spices, and oils, which we count as protein free. Okay, we've also got the plant-based meat alternatives. I've put them in brackets because I'm going to talk about them later and really just say that some of them, I think, are not particularly healthy and can be quite high in protein, so aren't necessarily that helpful, but we are going to talk about them in a little bit of time. Okay, so the benefits of plant-based diets, and there's benefits for everybody. We should all be using a lot more beans and pulses in our diet. I think it's good for all of us. So the general benefits, and then the particular benefits for AKU. So heart health. So one of the things that certainly beans and pulses contain what we call soluble fibre. So soluble fibre actually reduces absorption of some fats and cholesterol. So they directly have a benefit on heart health, and then also have an indirect benefit because of their healthy properties. They help reduce blood pressure, so reduce the risk of heart attacks and stroke. Gut health. Hopefully you've all heard of the microbiome. Those are the bacteria that naturally live within our gut, within our large colon. And hopefully the words prebiotics and probiotics might be familiar to you. So probiotics, the gut has healthy bacteria, which are there, part of our microbiome, and they give lots of health benefits. In recent years, we just keep finding out there's so many more health benefits to these that we hadn't realised. Sometimes the healthy bacteria become reduced. Maybe you've taken antibiotics or something that might have killed them off, or you've had a bad diet. So you can take something called probiotics. So that's when you take, so some of these sort of little yogurt type drinks or tablets that recolonize your bowel with the healthy bacteria. And what things like the fiber, particularly in things like beans and pulses and vegetables, is termed as a prebiotic. So what they do is they contain the food that those bacteria like to eat. So we know that fibre doesn't get digested and goes to our bowel. Also, as well as fibre, there are things like resistant starches and something called fructooligosaccharides. So these are sort of starches that don't get digested and also go to the large bowel. The bacteria who live there, our microbiome, love them. They're their food, they're their source. So by eating lots of beans and pulses and vegetables, we get improved gut health with all the health benefits that go alongside that. Environmental. Now, I know this is quite nuanced and it depends on the farming technique, but in general, particularly industrialized agriculture of beef and dairy does emit quite a lot of greenhouse gases. Also, the amount of land required to rear animals compared to the land required to rear vegetables or grow vegetables is less. So there are probably environmental benefits. I appreciate it's nuanced and slightly controversial, but probably benefits for the environment about being plant-based. Diabetes and cancer risk I've put in italics because the methods are slightly more indirect, but certainly in terms of diabetes risk, if the carbohydrate source from beans and pulses has a lower glycemic index, it means it raises your blood sugar less quickly, but also again, because of the health benefits and the reduction in weight, that helps reduce diabetes risk. And particularly in plants, there's phytochemicals and antioxidants that are thought to be reduce the risk of certain cancers, like colon and breast cancer, and also my mind's just gone. Oh yes, and the reduced, because it tends to be a healthier diet, less processed, ultra processed foods, then overall health benefits. But I think for AKU in particular, we do know that people with AKU, there is a tendency for people with the AKU to be overweight. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because if you've got problems with your joints, it's a lot harder to do the same amount of exercise as other people do, so less physical activity. But the other thing, when we compared the SONIA patients with our AKU patients, and the differences that our AKU patients were on a low protein diet, we found there was more weight gain. And certainly protein is the most satiating nutrient. It makes you feel full up. If you can't eat lots of protein, you tend to eat a lot of carbohydrate, often biscuits and cakes and things. So we think that probably the controlled protein diet has a tendency to encourage people to become overweight. But if you eat lots of beans and pulses, which are very filling and don't contain lots of calories, then it's a good way of helping manage your weight. And the other really big advantage with plant-based diets is that things like beans and pulses have a lot less protein than meat, so it means you get a bigger, your protein goes further, and also you're less likely to gain weight. I know I whizzed through that, so if anybody's got any more questions about that, do ask later on. So this is our interactive bit, so we'll see if this works. I know there's not that many people online, but if any of you are happy to join in, if you try and get to your bar at the top, you'll see there's a button for annotation. You might just have to press OK where it says this is being recorded. And you can see there's a bar at the top that's got audio, video, participants, chat, share, and there's a little pen that says annotate.
Just to say, Claire, my bar's at the bottom.
Oh yeah,
and
the pen, the side.
Yeah, the pen doesn't say annotate. It's just mine is over to the left-hand side of the screen, and it's like a little green pen in a circle.
Oh yeah,
so it might look like that instead. Mine's hidden away.
I'm going to click mine first. Once that comes up, you'll find there's a tab, and there's fifth one down, there's a tick. And then if you tick on that, there's a tick, or there's a cross, or there's a star or a heart. You can use whatever one you want. But what I want people to do, you can see here, there's 2 meals. There's one that's got 4 slices of roast beef, potatoes and broccoli. And we've got another one that's got sweet and sour chickpeas and boiled rice. And now what I want you to do is put your stamp. If you think that the meat veg potato has got the most protein in, put it there. If you think that the chickpeas and rice has got more protein, put it there. Or if you think they've both got the same amount of protein, you can put your stamp in the middle. So I'm going to clear my stamps, but if you want to, once I've cleared them, sorry, Hannah, can you do that again? I cleared your stamp. If you can put your stamps on the one you think either the meat's got the most potato, a nice squiggle on that one. Well done to whoever did the squiggle. The chickpeas have got the most protein, or if you think they've both got the same, you can put your stamp in the middle.
I'm not going to lie, I had to guess.
Okay, thank you to everybody who did that. Yeah. What we're going to do, I'm just going to clear those and we'll move on to the next one. Drawings. Oh, my thing stopped. Oh, now I'm doing, that's why it's doing it. I've not cleared my one out. Let's see this work now. Get rid of that. That should work. Right. Hopefully my slides on. Oh, there we go. So the meat has a lot more protein. So we've got 49 grams of protein in the meat, and we've got only there we go, only 20 grams of protein in the. So, and what I would say to you, do you know where that square's come
Sorry
from?
about that.
Oh.
Shall I? Sorry, Claire. I do apologise. I don't know where that came from.
Sorry, you made me laugh. So what I always say to people who are new to AKU about the diet, because lots of people start AKU and think, oh God, the diet's going to be horrible. If you want to have meat, veg, potato on the meal, on your plate, it will be a horrible diet, because actually if you were going to keep to your AKU diet, you probably only have one of those slices of meat instead of 4, and it would be miserable. You just got a tiny amount. Whereas if you look at your chickpeas and rice, you know, that's going to make you feel really full up. And you're using less than half the protein of the other meal. We have quite a few patients of South Asian origin who, when they start the diet, don't even need to make any changes. So if you follow a mainly vegan diet, you probably wouldn't even need to count your protein. You could just eat freely because you are reducing the protein to such an extent. Okay, now I've got this. The technical problem, my slides aren't moving on. Oh, there we go. So there are some risks on being just plant-based, which I just want to touch on. So particularly vitamin B12, iron, and come from meat and animal sources, particularly good sources. Omega-3 fatty acids particularly come from fish. And things like calcium is very rich in dairy, vitamin D. If you don't get it from the sun, fish are a good source. So you are at risk of running slightly low on those. But there are things you can do. So for B12, fortified foods such as Marmite, breakfast cereals, great, and that's a very high iron. So heme iron, which is the iron found in meat, is very absorbable. The body can take it up and use it really well. We all know that vegetables do contain iron because Popeye ate spinach, and that's how he got all his muscles. But the iron in plant-based foods is not as available. It's not as easy for your body to absorb. Sorry, I'm keeping Nadia out of the picture. It's not as absorbable, but if you include a source of vitamin C, so that would be some citrus, orange juice, grapefruit juice, or a salad, then that will release the iron so that it can be absorbed by the body. And for omega-3 fatty acids, things like flax or linseed or walnuts are a good source. In AKU, if you're not vegan, I always encourage people to have at least one serving of dairy, because calcium in dairy has, again, very high bioavailability. It's very absorbable. But we do recommend, we look at your diet, we recommend how much calcium and vitamin D you need to supplement, because we do try and go for quite high intakes. Okay, the other thing people talk about, and those of you with long memories will remember that we used to say you had to have so many 7-gram swaps and so many 2-gram swaps, and that was so that you mixed and got all the essential amino acids. So if you have any meat or anything that's plant-based, that's animal-based, that will include all the essential amino acids. But if you have a plant-based food, it won't be as rich, and it has them, but not in high levels. And quite a big thing has been made about this, and it's probably not as big as we used to think. So if you only ate rice and ate nothing else for the rest of your life, you would become deficient in lysine. If you only ate legumes and didn't eat anything else, you would become deficient in methionine. But because we tend to have, as we saw in the previous picture, maybe some chickpeas with some rice or some bread if we were having lentils, we tend to mix those things anyway, in which case you will be absolutely fine. But you don't want to just eat one food for the rest of your life, because you may become deficient. Okay, so we're going to use the stickers again. So I've got another thing here that's just similar to the one before, but sorry, stamps, not stickers. So one of these does have more protein than all of the others. So what I want people to do is put their sticker on the one they think contains the most protein. Or if you're Emily, you can put a large blue box.
That's higher.
No, I mean, that's a lot of beans.
Yeah, it's a big lot of beans, isn't it?
A lot of beans.
Let's try and get it to work.
It's lovely seeing all the stamps landing. So we've got a couple of votes for the 100 grams of we've got quite a lot of votes for the chickpeas. So 100 grams of chickpeas. We've got 1 vote for the chicken breast and about 4 votes for the beef. So well done to the people who said beef. You are correct. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to clear those. Oops, let me just clear. And then you can see, so if those of you who remember swaps in the days that we were using swaps, we're still using them a bit. So 25 grams of chicken, 40 grams of salmon, 100 grams of chickpeas, or 130 grams of baked beans all contain 7 grams of protein. They're 1 7-gram swap in old money. And if you were to have a 7-gram swap of beef, it would be 25 grams. So that is the one that's highest in protein. And this is what I always say to people, even if you, and I know it's veganuary, so I shouldn't be saying this, but even if you do eat meat, if you make part of your meal beans or pulses, so a stew that's got kidney beans or black beans or something in it, it just makes it go so much more further, because you get so much more and you feel so much full up. I follow somebody called Christopher Gardner, who's probably the biggest protein guru. He's a professor at University of Stanford in the States, and he does lots of fantastic webinars and writes papers on protein. He's absolutely fantastic. And he was asked, what is the best tip you can give on healthy eating? He's plant-based, he's a vegan. And he says, learn how to make beans and pulses taste good, because we should all be eating lots more of them. But if you have AKU, they just make your diet go so much further. Okay, got that slide thing going on. Sorry. The disadvantage of using a stamp is you can't forward your slides. Right. Yeah. I'm just going to talk briefly about plant-based milk, meat even, or vegan meat. Some people are using these. Some people use them to make their some of these products to make their protein go a bit further. Some of them are really useful. Some of them probably aren't that useful. So I'm going to do this quite quickly. I'm aware of time, because I've probably talked for far too long already. So I will go through these quite quickly, but they are different and they do vary. And the big thing that influences what they're like is what they're based on. So some are based on soybean, peas, and legumes. These are the ones that tend to contain quite a lot of protein. Some are based on wheat and other grains. Some are a fungus, so mycoprotein, so that's your corn, and some are just based on vegetables. And the protein content varies hugely. You do need to look at labels. So these are the burger-based ones, and we can see I've got a regular beef burger at the top. So a quarter pounder would have about 21 grams of protein. If you replaced it with a soy-based burger, you're reducing your protein a bit to about 14, but not an awful lot. If you use a pea-based, well, it's probably almost the same as regular beef. Same with the wheat-based. Same with the mycoprotein or the corn, and it's really only the vegetable, the burger patties that are really made from squished up vegetables. I've not had them. Nadia has them and says they're nice. Yeah. Those are much lower in protein, but all of them are quite a lot higher. I have put in here the Asda-based meatballs because as an example, because later on Nadia's going to do a recipe with meatballs, but just they have 82 grams, they weigh 82 grams and have got about 13 grams of protein, so similar. So they are a little bit lower than meat, but not an awful lot lower. What I would say is they are classed as ultra processed foods. They've got quite a lot of fat and additives, so they're probably, if you're trying to have a more healthy diet, they're probably not going to particularly do that, unless you were bothered, if you were doing this to save protein rather than because you didn't want to eat meat, you almost might as well have the meat alternative. Okay, sausages. So if you have a normal 57, 60 gram sausage has got about 10 grams of protein in. If you have two, it's about 21 grams. If you change for soy-based or pea-based, you're getting a slight reduction, not much. It's only if you have the vegetable ones, you're going to get the benefit. Similar with the sort of the mince. So this is regular mince meat, soy-based or corn. Corn does make it quite a bit lower. So if you made something like, if you remember when we did one of the cook-alongs with one of the chefs, they did a chili that had corn and I think kidney beans in. So you can make it your protein quite a lot lower, but just be careful, not all corn products are vegan. Some of them contain egg white, I think. So checking the labels is really important. Now, I know as people with AKU, we're checking the labels all the time, and you're very probably used to having a look and seeing here, you look at protein and you can see that per burger, we've got 12.6 grams of protein and 12 grams per 100 grams. But the other thing that's quite useful with the vegan products is you look at the source. So you can hear on the first one, it's based on soy protein. So if it's based on soy protein is very high in protein. It's probably going to be about the same protein content as meat. So if you're using this as a swap to a lower protein vegan alternative, it's not going to work. You can see here, it's got wheat gluten and fava bean protein. So that one won't be quite as high because it's a wheat-based one. So it's really important to look at the source of protein because, as I say, if it's based on something like soy or beans or pulses, it's probably going to have almost the same protein content as meat. So you're not getting the benefit of a lower protein food. Okay, plant-based milks, these are used quite widely by people with AKU, and I think they're great. If we look at regular dairy milk at the bottom, doesn't matter whether it's full cream or skimmed, they've all got 7 grams of protein. What changes with those is the fat content. If you use soya milk, you're also going to be having about 7 grams of protein. If you go for the oat or the almond, 2 grams of protein. If you go for something like rice, hemp or coconut, you've got no protein at all. And these are really useful. Say you're going out to meet a friend for coffee or for a drink, you can have a plant-based drink and you're not using any of your protein allowance up. So it allows you to do those normal things that other people get to do that can be difficult if you're on a protein restricted diet. Cheeses as well. So regular cheese has got 25 grams of protein per 100 grams. Interestingly, I know it's not vegan, but cream cheese is quite low in protein, so it can be useful if you want to make a sauce or something with it. The coconut-based cheeses are free food, so they've got no protein in at all. I personally think some of them aren't that nice. They are very high in calories, but they are useful. The nut-based cheese is a lot lower. It's 7 grams of protein per 100 grams. It's a lot lower than regular cheese. I think they're a little bit nicer. They're hard to get hold of. They're quite and they're quite expensive. There's a vegan shop near us that sells them, and I think they are quite decent, but they're not particularly cheap. But they are all cheeses are very high in calories, so just be aware of that. And then there's some of these products, tofu, generally people tend to use in cooking the firm tofu. So 16 grams of protein per 100 grams, not too bad. Tempeh, I've only ever had once. It's about the same. They're formed into pâtés, and it's about the same as probably meat in terms of protein. But, if you're out and about, something to try. One of the things that people do find very useful is the jackfruit. It makes a good a vegan pulled meat type thing, a pulled pork. A lot of the chains like Wagamama's and a few of the others have them on the menu. So if they're eating out, it'd be quite a useful thing to do. I've not tasted it. Have you had them?
Yeah, I have tasted
Yeah,
it. It's good. Yeah,
I've heard they're really good. Yeah. So in summary, then, beans, pulses, legumes, they're lower in protein than meat and they have lots of health benefits. You know, if we should all be eating, I'm trying to get my 15-year-old son eating them a couple of times a week. We should all be eating more beans and pulses. Plant-based meat alternatives some of them can be high in protein, fat, and calories, so not that useful, but others can really be helpful to add variety, to reduce protein, and also when eating out. Other traditional foods also can be useful when eating out. Okay, unless there's any burning questions, Nadia's going to go over a few recipes, and then we've got time for questions at the end. Is that okay?
Yep.
Here we go.
Hi from me as well. So as part of our Veganuary project, we put together a selection of simple, enjoyable vegan recipes suitable for a protein-controlled diet. These recipes focus on flavor, variety, and practicality. And the plant-based meals can be both satisfying and achievable as part of your routine. So our first recipe is a chickpea coconut curry. This recipe serves 4, and you will need coconut oil or olive oil, onion, garlic, ginger, curry powder, of course, a can of coconut milk. You can use light coconut milk. The results will be the same. 1 can of chickpeas, tomatoes, spinach. You can use fresh or frozen spinach. Just make sure if you use frozen spinach to defrost it first before you use it and squeeze the excess water. Salt and pepper to taste. And at the end, for garnish, fresh coriander and lime juice. So this is a very comforting, flavoring vegan meal. It's made with simple ingredients, as you can see. So we start by gently cooking some onion in a little coconut or olive oil. Then we add the garlic, the ginger, and the curry powder. This is where all the lovely flavor comes from, so you don't need to add lots of salt or heavy sauces. Next, we stir in the coconut milk, the tomatoes, and the chickpeas, and we let it simmer for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. The coconut milk makes the curry creamy and filling without adding much of protein. Right at the end, we add the spinach, which wilts down in just a minute, and add some green in your plate. At the end, you can use a bit of fresh coriander and a squeeze of lime. In my opinion, that really lifts the whole dish. This dish, served with a medium portion of rice, provides 550 calories and 14 grams of protein. That makes it as a perfect low protein dish. We continue with a vegan big burger. It's a homemade plant-based burger. This recipe shows how familiar comfort foods can be adapted for our veganuary using everyday ingredients. You will need a can of black or kidney beans, onion, carrot, garlic, a bit of tomato paste, smoked paprika, cumin, breadcrumbs, salt and pepper to taste, and a little bit of olive oil for pan frying or air frying. So, we initially mash the beans in a large bowl, leaving some texture on, mix in the vegetable spices, tomato paste, and the breadcrumbs until combined. Shape the mixture into 4 patties and chill briefly to help them hold together. At this point, you can use 1 patty and freeze the rest so you can use them on a different day. Pan fry in a little bit of olive oil or air fry until golden on both sides. Then serve with your choice of your salad or vegan topping. Each of those bean burgers, including the bun, provides around 350 calories and 13 grams of protein. Again, it's an easy dish and very low in protein. Okay, our next recipe is one of my favorite, lentil soup. It's a classic dish from Greek cuisine, and as I'm a Greek, I absolutely love this dish. It's hearty, comforting, and perfectly suited to a vegan diet. This recipe serves 4, and you will need a cup of dried brown or green lentils. You will find them in the main supermarkets. An onion, carrots, garlic, bay leaves, dried oregano, a tablespoon of cumin or any spices that you like, a can of tomatoes, chopped tomatoes, vegetable broth or water, olive oil, and at the end for the serving, a little bit of wine vinegar. So let me show you how easy it is to make this dish. We initially saute the onion, the garlic, and the carrots. We add the spices. I personally prefer cumin and a touch of cinnamon, but it's up to you. We add the lentils, the tomatoes, and the vegetable broth, and we simmer until the lentils are tender. That takes about 30 to 40 minutes approximately. You finish the dish with a drizzle of olive oil and a splash of red vinegar. I usually serve this with a slice of crusty bread, and that portion will provide you around 370 calories and 17 grams of protein. Okay, again, it's a very filling dish, packed with fiber and vitamins. Okay, so this is our last recipe for today, a very quick wrap with using ready-made plant-based meatballs. So you can find them everywhere in the supermarkets. You cook the meatballs in the oven or the air fryer according to the package instructions. You warm the tortilla. You spread a little bit of hummus. I would advise to use reduced fat hummus as it's a product that is high in calories and protein. So we need to use it in moderate amounts. You add the chopped cucumbers, tomatoes, red onions, and lettuce, or whatever vegetable you like, and you fill with the cooked meatballs. This wrap provides 350 calories and 20 grams of protein. As you can see, the protein is a bit high here. And as Claire mentioned, some of those products can be high in protein. In my opinion, it's a good idea to always check the protein content in the food label when using this product. To stay within your protein goal, it's important, I think, to be able to recognize when a product is high in protein. So, before I finish, I'd like to highlight a few practical tips to support you with your everyday meal planning. First, don't be afraid to add more vegetables if you enjoy them. Things like peppers, broccoli, spinach, mushrooms can easily be added to meals. They increase the volume, the color, or the flavor of your plate without adding much protein. Another helpful tip is to freeze leftovers in portions. This gives you ready-made meals for busy days and can also help prevent accidental eating larger portions that you planned. When it comes to flavor, remember to spice your way. Herbs, spices, garlic, ginger, and even a splash of lime or vinegar can really lift a dish without adding extra protein or salt. And if you can, try batch cooking for the week. Preparing a few portions at once saves time and helps ensure you always have suitable low-protein meals available. Also think about pairing your meals wisely. For example, serving your dishes with rice, pasta, or bread can make meals more filling while keeping protein under control. And finally, enjoy and relax. Vegan meals can be very tasty. Take your time, enjoy your food, and have fun discovering new flavors that work for you. And don't forget, small changes can make a big difference. And it's all about finding what fits best into your everyday life. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Just to let you know, ladies, there are some questions in the chat box.
Oh, right.
Okay.
We're popped in there. So
Yeah.
maybe we can work through those first.
Do you want to read them out, or shall I end the presentation and then I can open them up? That might.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So stop sharing. There we go. I've got some Libro slides. Oh, have I done? I've got some Libro slides that I can put up later if we've got time. I know we slightly overran. There we go. Right, where's the chat box? Oh, thank you. It moves around. Okay. Is it necessary to maintain a ratio of legumes and tyrosine-free protein powder? Okay. So I'm guessing that's somebody who's not from the UK. So generally, the way we do it, so I appreciate that that everybody does things slightly differently. So the way we do things in the UK is we have what we call a controlled protein intake. So that's about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram. So depending on your weight, you'll be on anything from 40 to 60, 65 grams of protein. So that is thought to be enough protein for the body. And then we add the protein powder, the tyrosine-free protein powder, just in some patients who we think need additional protein. So the idea for the way we do the diet here is that the diet provides the amount of protein you need, and then the tyrosine protein powder is as an addition. I don't know how diets are done in other countries, so it might be slightly different. In some places, they give you a very low protein diet, in which case legumes may not even be allowed, and use most of the protein powder as a source of protein. So it's very difficult for me to exactly answer that question. But if you're a UK based, then the legumes would be just the source of protein, and the protein would be an addition. Okay, so any other source of protein than sago balls or tapioca powder for vegetarians. So sago and tapioca are kind of what we would call a starchy food. So they're quite low in protein. So again, it's quite difficult for me to answer that question. Whoever put that on, if you want to ask, come on and say something or add something, then that's fine. Any natural source of protein which is free of tyrosine? Not really. So the only sort of food that has protein that doesn't really contain much tyrosine is jelly, which comes from gelatin and isn't vegan. Vegetables, fruit and vegetables are quite low naturally in tyrosine and phenylalanine, and also quite low in calories. So we do encourage lots of fruit and vegetables, and we in the UK don't count the protein in them. So they are relatively low, with the exception of legumes, sweet corn, and peas. Does that answer that question? Right, I just need to move down so that I can see. So what can be included for making Indian flatbread? Now that's a difficult one because I've never made Indian flatbread.
I haven't.
I'm assuming they would normally be based on wheat flour or gram flour. So wheat flour, when we think about the starchy foods, so things like bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, these are foods that most people who don't have AKU would think of as protein, as not containing protein. But because we obviously know you're all protein experts, we know that these do contain protein. So most of them in a normal serving will contain somewhere between 2 to 4 grams of protein. So we count them. Some are lower than others. So anything that's wheat-based tends to be slightly higher in protein because the gluten, which is part of the wheat, is the protein part. So what you can do is use gluten-free wheat flour, which is lower in protein, or other things like, and I'm guessing the tapioca and the sago are probably slightly lower. I actually, off the top of my head, don't know the protein content of them because they're things that we don't tend to use much. Certainly, rice and potatoes are lower in protein than wheat. Gram flour is made from chickpeas, so that is going to be a higher protein flour. That's the one when they talk, in the UK, everything's high protein in the supermarkets, and that's what they tend to use. So if I was going to make an Indian flatbread, but as I say, I don't know what normally goes into it, I would probably try with a gluten-free flour if I wanted to keep the protein down. I imagine it's quite difficult. So the problem with gluten-free is gluten is the part that gives the texture. So when you try and cook with gluten-free, it can be quite crumbly and quite difficult to make. Yeah. So you probably need to add something to it to make it a bit, but I don't know what you would add. So I'm sorry, I don't really know. I talked a lot without answering that question because I don't really know the answer. Sorry about that, but I did try. Are there any other questions?
Hello, I have a question.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, first of all, would like to thank you for this meeting because it was really inspiring for me. I've been on the vegetarian diet for like 7 years now, and it used to be mostly based on my intuition, but I think that now I have more like knowledge. I would like to ask you about some, I don't know, tips for people that like to be physically active because now I'm 22 and I try to go to the gym and take care of my physical activity. And I observed some kind of fear that it will be harder for me to build muscles, for example, than for my peers that are like that don't have this kind of health problems.
Okay, and Alicia, do you are you? I don't know where you live. Do you know?
I'm from Poland.
Okay, roughly how much protein do you tend to aim for in your diet?
Around 60 grams. My weight is around 60 kilograms.
Okay.
My diet doctor says that it's a little bit too much, and also my tyrosine level is a little bit too high.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Lovely. So there's lots of stuff on protein in the media. There's a lot of pressure on people to have like high protein, and a lot of thought that you need protein to put muscle on. I think there's a lot of myths around that. And actually, what increases your muscle is resistance exercise. So exercise will allow you to gain muscle. Yes, you need enough protein, but if you really want to read an academic paper, you can read the WHO report on protein, and it's based around nitrogen balance, and that's where the 0.8 of protein per kilogram comes from. So it suggests that is enough protein to gain muscle. Certainly, when you have your protein for exercise, it is good to spread your proteins around during the day. So, and I do other presentations, and I can do this another time around protein metabolism. But where all this protein stuff comes from is that when we eat protein, protein goes into our muscles. Between meals, when we're not eating protein, we tend to break our muscles down. So if you eat, say you were allowed 60 grams of protein, but you wanted to have a really big meal in the evening. So you thought, right, I'm going to save about 45 grams of protein for my evening meal, and I'm going to spread the other 15 to 20 grams throughout the day. That wouldn't be very good, because what you would be doing was you would be having only small amounts of protein during the day and then having all your protein in one meal. But if you spread that protein out throughout the day, then that protein during the day, I'm explaining this really bad, I tend to need to do pictures with it, but when you're not eating protein, when you've just eaten protein following your meal, you're building up muscle, so you're increasing your muscle content. Between meals, you're breaking your muscles down to release amino acids as a source of protein. So if you have large periods of time without protein in your diet, you'll break your muscles down. There's also another thing called the muscle full phenomenon, which says you can only take up 20 to 40 grams of protein in a meal into your muscles, and then your muscles become full and can't take any more. So really, you don't want to have more than about 20, bit more than 20 grams of protein in a meal and spread that out, because that way you're making sure if you have more protein than that in a meal, then protein gets used for other things, not for muscle building, and it may be converted into energy. So by splitting your 60 grams of protein into 20 grams 3 times a day, or even, 15, 15, 15, and, a little bit extra, even to 4 meals would be the ideal way to do that. The high protein that everybody talks about in the gym really comes from, because a muscle full is 40 grams of protein is the maximum protein that the muscle could take up. That's where all these very high protein things come from. They're saying, so what they do is, right, if you have 40 grams of protein 4 times a day, that's about 160 grams of protein, then you've got the maximum chance of building muscle. But most people don't need that. That's the maximum that an athlete would need, not just a regular person going to the gym. So what I would say is just spread your protein out during the day, but do resistance exercise, because that's the thing that builds muscle. They used to say that you have to have your protein immediately after exercise, because that's how it gets taken up into the muscles. But that's now, it takes hours. Your muscles can take up. So as long as you're eating your protein throughout the day, you don't need to time it to just after, these protein shakes that people take immediately after the gym. The most recent studies and evidence are saying that's not necessary anymore, that you've probably got 4 to 6 hours at your muscles taking up protein, so you don't need to have a protein shake immediately after the gym. Does that answer your question, Alicia?
Yes, thank you very much.
My pleasure. I mean, obviously, if your diet is done differently in Poland to here, do any changes that you make, do discuss with your dietitian or doctor in Poland, because obviously we all manage alkaptonuria slightly differently.
Yes, yeah, of course. But I was interested to ask you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But definitely spreading your protein out throughout the day and exercise is a really good way. And there's some really good studies actually where they had athletes and they gave them vegan diets and they still gained muscle. So it is absolutely possible. We don't actually need those very high protein intakes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
My pleasure. And I'm glad you found the talk helpful. Any other questions?
Hello.
Hiya.
Yes. So it is a very informative lecture by you. Thank you very much for that. Actually, my daughter is 7 years old and she is diagnosed as alkaptonuria recently. And we were worried that what in future we can have some preventive action to to reduce the joint and other issues, right? So actually, we met dietitian here. We are from India, actually, and she suggested to have some tyrosine-free protein powder in our diet because all the other proteins, we are vegetarians, and all other legumes and all proteins contains tyrosine and homocysteine. So for that, we are adding tyrosine-free protein powder in our diet. So we are worried that if, as you said, that we should take as much as protein, or normal protein for it. So can it be converted to homocysteine and will accumulate in joints if we take higher proteins?
So obviously treatment is different in different countries. Does your daughter take nitisinone at all?
No, nitisinone is not still recommended below 12 years.
Okay, so and in the UK, what we do, we don't use nitisinone below 18 years. So, yes. So in childhood, we just encourage a normal diet, and the idea is that children should eat normally so that they gain, they develop normally and gain normal growth of muscles. I mean, you can certainly add the tyrosine-free powder is also free of phenylalanine.
Sorry? Yes. We are getting it.
Yeah. So tyrosine and phenylalanine-free powder is fine to take. We don't use it. We just let people have a normal diet in childhood. We don't give any additional protein. We just don't restrict protein. But you know, I don't think there's any harm to taking it. It's just giving additional protein to your daughter. But you know, we don't actually use that. We just say normal diet in childhood. What I would encourage, but I know you said you're vegetarian, and I think beans and pulses are quite often used as part of an Indian diet. So the only thing I would say to people if children aren't used to eating beans and pulses is to get them to eat them, because they're going to be really useful for them to have in adulthood. So get used to having them. But apart from that, just, you know, just give your daughter kind of a normal childhood, a normal diet. Once she's older and she starts nitisinone, then you'll need to look at the protein content. But until then, it's, you know, you cannot, what the nitisinone does is it reduces the homogentic acid.
Yes.
And even if you put your daughter on a really, really low protein diet, you will not get the homogentic acid down low. And if that's what the studies are suggesting, so we just say normal diet and then reduce to protein once they're on the homogentic acid. But as I say, if you're Indian and you're vegetarian, then you're probably having the perfect diet for AKU anyway.
Okay, thank you.
You're probably eating lots of beans and pulses, so that's great. But what you don't want to do is lower the protein in your child. You want your child to grow normally and lower the protein. But that's the advice that we use in the UK. Now, that advice may change in the future if there's future research, but the current evidence suggests the best thing is allow your daughter to eat a reasonably normal diet, grow naturally, and then look at modifying the protein. We call it a controlled protein rather than a low protein diet that we use. Do that once she's on nitisinone, but not before then. Just be careful. You want to look after a joint. So we do say joint-friendly exercise. So maybe avoiding things that are putting pressure on the joints. That would be the only proviso there.
Okay.
And keep active, absolutely. Exercise is great. And vegan or vegetarian diets are also great. They're all very healthy.
Okay. Thank you.
My pleasure. Now, I appreciate that not everybody's UK based. Do you want me to, we're running out of time actually, so shall I leave the Libro slides, Hannah?
I think possibly, because it would be good to actually have a chance to maybe go through them a little bit more. So well, I think maybe we do an additional session and we just make sure that we make it aware that it's UK based, because it's obviously for our UK patients. And we can put our heads together and come up with a little sidebar session, if that's okay.
I think that's the presentation I sent you, because I'm quite happy to have a PDF of the presentation. Did have the Libro slides on, so I'll just need to take that off before we send it out if anybody wants it.
Yeah. Also, perhaps if you do take it off, that means we can pop it on the website and it'll make sense alongside this recording as well.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, does anybody else have any questions that weren't put in the chat? No. Just to note that Georgia and I are both doing Veganuary this month, as a way of sort of trying to understand how it might be difficult for patients to have to monitor their diet, what they're eating. We are only 7 days in, but let me tell you, I have so much respect for you guys, because trying to manage this in a household where not everybody's doing Veganuary, trying to find ingredients that I've never used before, going out for food for things and having to look at a different menu, all of these things that we just take so for granted, just being able to eat whatever we want, coming up with different ways of introducing things in. I don't know about you, Georgia, it's really interesting, but it is very difficult, and we're only 7 days in, and this is a choice that we have.
I do agree.
And we're only doing it for a month. So this challenge has actually done what I expected it to do, which is it's very different, because we obviously don't have AKU, but just trying to have a think about how things must be for you to do this on a long-term basis, or even when you first get your diagnosis and then you're told these things have to change. It must be so difficult. So I really, really take my hats off to you all. And we will be blogging how we're getting on. I've been taking some pictures of the things that I've been making and stuff like that. So we will feed back to you sort of towards the end of this month. But good for you guys managing this, because it's not.
And I think what I found is even checking the labels. It's like last night, I think I went to Aldi and it was so busy, and having to check the labels for every single thing. And then you find something that's not vegan, it's vegetarian. And then in my head, I'm trying to like change my recipe around to fit what ingredients are in the shop. So
And I
it's
also
really
thought to
difficult.
myself how difficult it must be when our AKU patients are trying to manage their protein intake and it's not on a menu, and then you're having to figure that out or get some sort of app up or something like that to try and figure it out, that it's quite often the calories are on there but the protein isn't. So there seems to be lots of things that can make it quite difficult, I imagine. So yeah, we will
That's if
yeah.
I can just briefly come in there. That's why we do try and use the swaps or
Yes.
exchanges. And
Yeah.
I know nobody really likes them, hardly anybody uses them, apart from me and a couple of people. But it is about getting people to understand. It is a way of being out and about and trying to understand the protein content. And I think it's hard if you've not got those. The app also does it. But it is a way of trying to understand the protein content of foods, because you can kind of get, and once you have learned them, it is quite easy to swap them around. So I can teach you them if you like.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, if we haven't got any more questions, then I'm going to say thank you to Nadia and to Claire for coming along today, and to everybody that joined and asked really good questions. If you have any questions that spring to mind, you are welcome to send those in to me. Those UK patients have my email address. Those outside of the UK, you can use info@akuSociety.org. Do bear in mind that Claire and Nadia are UK-based practitioners, though, so we just have to caveat that we are a UK-based charity, so we can help where possible, but it does differ from country to country. And we would always ask you to take guidance from your specific local healthcare professionals rather than necessarily listening to all of the guidance, because it can differ. So if you do have anything, then you're welcome to get in touch. And also any UK patients, we are going to do a Libro follow-up session about the app at another time. So watch this space.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and I hope you all have a good rest of the day wherever you are in the world, and take care.